served our country with honor. They gave of themselves so we can live free. They returned home and continue to serve our community. They are the men and women of South Georgia. They are the heroes among us. WALB News 10's Heroes Among Us, brought to you by Montlick & Associates.
Thank you for joining us for this special presentation, Heroes Among Us. Each month, WALB and Montlick & Associates highlight a veteran, a fallen soldier, or an active duty service member. We do our best to tell the story of the impact these heroes make on their communities. With help from you, our viewers, we pick one very special person each year. Let's take a look at the honor, courage, and commitment of some of the heroes among us. Tifton's Jack Stone spent 7 years serving his country in the Army. He's spent more than 60 honoring the sacrifices of his brothers and sisters in arms.
I was drafted September the 20th, 1950.
During the Korean War, Jack Stone served as a gun commander, protecting facilities here in the U.S.
Out of 24 months, I spent 20 of them in tents.
He'd spend 7 years in the Army, much of it in the reserves. He came home to Tifton and started his own business more than 60 years ago. Over the years, he picked up several side projects aimed at commemorating his fellow service members and veterans, including one fallen airman.
He was a gunner on a B-7, and the bomb, they shot the airplane down, shot it all to pieces. Nobody survived. They found nobody. That's the only grave he's got.
In the early 90s, he'd helped what is now Jack Stone Veterans Park downtown. This monument has the names of more than 80 men and women from Tifton who were killed in action while fighting for our country.
Oh, well, I see a lot of folks I know.
And in 2019, he helped open Tifton's Veterans Museum.
There's his brother.
He's most proud of this room, decorated with dozens of 5x7 photos of people from Tifton who have selflessly served.
Say if I went to see the wall, Vietnam Wall, I'd see a bunch of names. I would not get emotional. But if I went to the wall we got over here, I would, because I could put a face to all those names.
Marvin Thomas's spirit of service was solidified during his 20-year Army career. Now he uses that spirit to make a difference in the lives of people in Albany.
My father was in the military.
Marvin Thomas served 20 years in the Army as a specialist, training fellow soldiers to defend against nuclear, biological, and chemical warfare. There was one special assignment that helped mold his desire to serve others.
They had an escort service where you escort babies from Korea back to the parents here, that's adoption service. And so I had the opportunity to escort a Korean child to a family here in the United States.
He ended up working at the Marine Corps Logistics Base in Albany in 2006. He became president of Viper Unit Motorcycle Club, and to this day, he and the club work to help people in need in the Good Life City.
I've seen families of kids that was, barely making it and things. So I started doing charity and giving away things we saw in the community, not only overseas or somewhere else, it's right here where we live.
They host several events each year, like back-to-back school giveaways, health fairs, and Christmas giveaways, all in hopes of making a difference.
And we had this one family that had 3 boys. We went out, we not only just gave them toys and things of that nature, we gave them clothes. That parent, she wrote us a letter, and she said back, hey, I am so thrilled. My boys are so excited. They haven't never had a Christmas like that in their whole entire life.
Grady County's Douglas Hawthorne learned the importance of responsibility during his 30-year Army career. That lesson led him to become a pillar of stability for those he loved.
Since my birthday is January 29th, February the 7th, they called me to active duty.
Douglas Hawthorne served 30 years in the U.S. Army. He went from being an enlisted soldier to a commissioned officer.
This is Emily.
His wife supported his military service, including his deployment to Vietnam.
I was assigned to an evaluation unit, was testing different things the Army was doing in a combat environment like they had in Vietnam.
Eventually, they went back home to Wiggum. They never had any children, but they had special connection with their niece, Emily.
She didn't live with us, but she stayed with us every chance she could get.
Every time school was out, I was down there.
The Hawthornes did not raise her, but they loved her as their own.
He's always been that dad for me, that father figure. Any advice I needed, he was my go-to person, you know.
Doug's wife, Emily, passed away in 2012. The next year, he made a huge change.
I agree with that. Adoption is a miracle. I felt like I should have been her parent anyway. But I asked her, would she want to be adopted? I didn't force anything on her.
No.
So that's when I come as a proud father of a daughter.
The lawyer that did the adoption in Thomasville, she's like, I've never had an adoption where the parent was 88 years old.
Today, she's grateful to not only have him in her life, but for his military service as well.
The older I get, I've realized, you know, what he sacrificed on the stories he's told.
Chuck Tunn's training, bravery, and instincts helped him ensure the safety of his fellow Marines during an active combat situation in Desert Storm.
I was in the infantry, mostly training for combat missions.
Chuck Tunn joined the Marine Corps in 1973. It took him all over the world.
Okinawa, Hong Kong, Singapore.
In 1990 and 91, he was a first sergeant serving in support of Operations Desert Shield and Desert Storm.
Even though, you know, everybody calls it a 3-day war, it was still tough. But we didn't lose anything and we accomplished the mission.
For this Marine, that involved exposing himself to hostile gunfire multiple times.
One of our missions was to clear the trenches. We had lost communication with the farthest left platoon.
So he moved toward that platoon to reestablish that communication.
At the time, I didn't think it was much.
But that's not how his fellow Marines saw it.
One of my platoon sergeants came up to me later and said, First Sergeant, it was just like Apocalypse Now. There were mortars going off, going around you, and you were up running around directing people and everything.
And Tunn says it was instinct and training that kicked in to keep others safe.
The guys on the front lines are awful young, and they're some mother's son, you know, and I'm charged with keeping them safe.
After 30 years as a Marine, he retired in 2003.
I'm not the only one. There are plenty of folks out here that have done 30 years.
Albany's George Eisler saw his two closest friends in Vietnam killed in action. Decades later, he has reconnected with their families to keep their memories alive.
Nothing prepares you for war.
Albany native George Eisler bonded with two fellow Marines in Vietnam, Bruce and Joel. They all had young sons back home in the States.
You have a tendency to talk openly with those people that have your life in their hands and you have their lives in your hands.
They wrote letters home just in case.
If something happened to one of us, whoever was there would go in the helmet, take the letter out and write home, let them know what happened.
That day came soon.
We got hit with mortars and a morning raid. Bruce was struck with shrapnel in the head. I was struck in the back.
Eisler survived.
I found out the next day that Bruce died from his injuries.
Joel made good on their pact. He sent Bruce and George's letters to their homes, one of the last things he would ever do.
Joel was killed about 9 days later.
Eisler recovered and served 19 months total in Vietnam during 2 tours. Years later, he worked to honor his fellow soldiers' memories.
I decided to go to Arkansas and look for Joel's gravesite. And in doing so, I found his son. His name is Joe.
Joe was around 3 months old when his dad was killed in action.
And I gave him the bracelet with his dad's name on it.
And George remembers Joel's sacrifice as well as Bruce's daily.
I wear this bracelet with his name in kind of honor. Naturally, I think that my name could be on one, and one of them could be sitting with their sons talking about the guy they knew named George.
Dawson's Harold Anderson served his country for almost 40 years, breaking racial barriers along the way. Since then, he has dedicated his life to the faith that guided him through it.
39 years, 8 months, and 4 days.
That's how much time Harold Anderson spent serving our country in both the U.S. Army and the Georgia Army National Guard. The Dawson native volunteered to go to Vietnam and serve in the infantry in the 60s.
By the grace of God, though, I come out without a scratch.
The now retired Command Sergeant Major would go on to serve in the Gulf War. After getting out of the Army, he wanted to join the National Guard, but met resistance.
At that time, it was basically white. And they told me, God rest his soul, they told me, said that it wasn't time for y'all yet.
But then he says the government began pushing to have more African Americans in the service. That's when he joined the Georgia Army National Guard. In 1995, Anderson graduated from the Sergeant Major's Academy in Texas. He then became the first Black Command Sergeant Major in Georgia Army National Guard history. After the military, Anderson turned his focus to God.
I never had much time to go to church. For me and my master, we would talk on plane trips, even in a war zone. And I always had promised him if he let me get through this, when I get through with it all, I'll be a faithful member of the church.
And he certainly kept that promise. He's now a deacon and the treasurer at Rose Hill Missionary Baptist Church.
I have been retired now 14 years, almost 15. And out of 15 years, I missed 2 days, 2 Sundays of church.
You're watching WALB News 10's Heroes Among Us, brought to you by Montlick & Associates. We will be right back.
I was at a former neighbor's house. She has 2 dogs, and one of the dogs wasn't really friendly and went up with the front legs on my lap. I said, okay, you gotta get the dog off from me. And I could not even finish, and the dog had me right in the face. My lip was completely cut, my nose was almost cut through, and my glasses, they saved me because the dog would have had me in my eyes. I felt alone. I was in pain. I didn't know what to do, so I called Monroe and Associates.
Miss Monroe went through a lot. She went through a dog bite, a vicious attack that caused her to be scarred for life. A lot of times with a dog bite, there's an open wound, but the doctor can't close the wound because it could get infected. That infection would be stuck in there, and that would be way worse.
In the hospital, I took pictures, and I sent him the pictures over. And he looked at it, he said, Miss Monroe, we have a case. And he started working right on it. It was a few months, and then he called me and he said, I got good news for you. We settled for the maximum.
I think my passion comes from the fact that I will fight tooth and nail for my position, for my client, and I will make sure that they get the justice they deserve.
He is standing up for me, he is fighting for me. He is very kind and always a listening ear. I am very, very pleased with everything. I highly recommend Monroe and Associates.
Welcome back to WALB News 10's Heroes Among Us, brought to you by Montlick & Associates.
The American Red Cross attributes several lives saved to the relentless dedication of Navy veteran and Red Cross volunteer Tom Wilson.
Tom is truly like the jokester. He always lightens the mood.
Darius Jackson is the disaster program manager at the American Red Cross in Albany. He's talking about Navy veteran Tom Wilson.
I watch him bring in his background from the fire department, from what he learned in the Navy. And when I say he's a skillful guy, he's skillful. Like, he has everything ready to go.
Wilson served nearly 25 years in the U.S. Navy. That included 2 tours overseas during Operation Enduring Freedom after the 9/11
That could be your
attack.
secondary means of escape.
He then worked with different fire departments, including in Albany. Now he's retired, but still volunteers.
He's always open and ready to serve, and every time, no matter what time of day, what time of night, Tom is here.
He's a member of the Red Cross Disaster Action Team and Home Fire Campaign.
He'd go out and install smoke alarms into homes that are not quite having them.
Wilson did not want to talk on camera, but those close to him say he has a simple goal of helping anyone he can.
We went through our data and we noticed that there was a life saved here in Albany. Not just a life, it was 8 lives saved.
Wilson helped install smoke alarms in one home that caught fire weeks later.
But due to the educational component and the smoke alarms installed by Tom, we were able to save 8 lives.
Jackson says it's only fitting that they recognize Wilson for that accomplishment.
That's truly amazing. That's just a testament to his ability to serve and how far he's willing to serve.
Helen Young left the Good Life City to see more of the world, becoming one of the first female military police officers in the Army. When she returned, she embarked on a life dedicated to helping those around her. Helen Young started her barber shop in Albany in 1965, 2 years after she graduated from Monroe High School. But at 34, she made a life-changing decision.
I recognized I hadn't seen enough of the world and didn't have the money to travel the world, so I decided to join the military. Here we are with those cute little skirts.
Until then, the Army had not been allowing women to be military police officers.
They didn't have no uniforms for us. They didn't have no guns that could fit our hand.
She came home to Albany several years later, went right back to her barbershop, and has kept it going ever since.
Most barbershops in Albany came through here or they were influenced by this.
She also trains young people to cut hair. She's even training a 10-year-old right now.
He is one of 5 boys. In fact, he is the oldest. I hope by the time he go back to school in September that he will have this skill down. You understand how much money his family will save if he cuts hair? And he will set a tone for the rest of them.
Young also helps out with an organization called Disabled American Veterans. She says she will keep doing that and training kids at her shop for as long as she can.
My health is pretty good. I like people a lot. If I can still stand until I'm 90, I'll be good.
You're watching WALB News 10's Heroes Among Us, brought to you by Montlick & Associates. We will be right back.
Recognized as a top-rated law firm for professional excellence in legal expertise, communication skills, and highest ethical standards. We are Montlick Injury Attorneys, and we know what it takes to win.
To all our troops and their families, we salute you. We thank you.
Welcome back to WALB News 10's Heroes Among Us, brought to you by Montlick & Associates.
Navy veteran Dwayne Roark recognized that veterans do not like to ask for help. So he started a nonprofit aimed at helping veterans in need. 92-year-old Harold Huppenthal is a Korean War veteran. These days, he's had a little trouble getting around.
He's got bad knees, and being 92 with some dementia, it makes it difficult for him to get in and out of the house and up and down the steps.
By chance, his daughter ran into Dwayne Roark at a festival last month.
Dwayne just took to my story of my dad really quickly and didn't hesitate to say, I'm going to come out and I'm going to build a handrail for your dad.
It's been donated to us.
Roark is a veteran himself. He served in the Navy in Desert Storm in the early 90s. But lately, he's been wanting to do more to help fellow veterans.
Veterans have a tendency not to ask for help, so you basically have to go to them and say, hey, we want to help you.
He launched a new nonprofit called Vet Team 6. They help do things around the house for veterans in need. That includes Mr. Huppenthal, who he built a handrail for.
You like that?
Oh, yeah.
It turned out real good.
I would say within a week, he was here, assessed what needed to be done, purchased the materials, came back, and within one day had a handrail built for my dad.
All at no cost to them.
I expected to at least reimburse him for the materials, and he said, absolutely not.
Army veteran and Albany native Angie Palmer joined the military looking for a better life for her daughter. What she found was a sense of service and love for her country and what it's supposed to stand for.
My cheesy picture from, I think that might have been from basic training, I'm not sure.
Albany native Angie Palmer joined the U.S. Army in the early 80s.
I was trying to provide for me and my daughter, and it ultimately led me to the military.
She worked as a communications specialist, which eventually brought her into the Gulf War.
We had just acquired a new communication system which allowed cellular telephone service for the commanders. So it was a very new system. We were the first ones to get it. And so, of course, when you go to war, you want to take your best.
And that time at war is hard for her to talk about.
It was a memorable experience since I survived it. You know, unexplainable, really. It was like nothing else.
But Palmer says she does not regret her service.
I don't know many veterans that would not say that we would go back and do it again. I love my country. I love what my country's supposed to stand for. And I'm grateful that I had the opportunity to help protect, you know, our customs and beliefs here. I survived and so many people didn't. I did a lot of things I never thought I would do, but I survived, so.
I recognized I hadn't seen enough of the world.
I was trying to provide for me and my daughter.
I was drafted September the 20th, 1950.
February the 7th, they called me to active duty.
Nothing prepares you for war.
Out of 24 months, I spent 20 of them in tents.
They didn't have no uniforms for us.
He told me, he said that it wasn't time for y'all yet.
Veterans have a tendency not to ask for help.
He's always open and ready to serve, and every time, no matter what time of day, what time of night, Thomas.
I've seen families or kids that barely making it and things, so started doing charity and giving away things. We saw it in the community, not only overseas or somewhere else, it's right here where we live.
The older I get, I've realized, you know, what he sacrificed on the stories he's told.
The guys on the front lines are awful young, and they're some mother's son.
By the grace of God, though, I come out without a scratch.
I survived, and so many people didn't.
We got hit with mortars and a morning raid. Bruce was struck with shrapnel in the head. I was struck in the back, and one of them could be sitting with their sons talking about the guy they knew named George.
Shot the airplane down, shot it all to pieces. Nobody survived. They found nobody. That's the only grave he's got.
I don't know many veterans that would not say that we would go back and do it again. I love my country. I love what my country's supposed to stand for. And I'm grateful that I had the opportunity to help protect, you know, our customs and beliefs here.
You're watching WAOB News 10's Heroes Among Us, brought to you by Montlick & Associates. We will be right back.
Carrie is great. She's a really caring, kind person. She was injured in 3 accidents. We helped her with all 3 accidents. The most recent accident had very low property damage, but it was the most significant injury for her. And so it was really important to try to help her as much as we could and get a great recovery for her.
I had injuries on the left side of my body. I had injuries on my leg, on my lower back, my neck, had whiplash, just all over my body. It took 4 years to get back to a point where I felt confident enough and comfortable enough to go on with my daily activities. I was very happy that I selected Montlick. From the start, the customer service was excellent. And the reason why I refer Montlick, and particularly Jennifer, is because she cared for me.
I decided to be an attorney from an early age. I grew up in a family where service was very important and giving back to your community. And as an attorney, you're able to do that professionally and help people when they really need someone. Something that was important with Carrie's case is because she's had 3 accidents, we had to distinguish her injuries from each accident.
There are a lot of things that I didn't know that would be included in a settlement. There were things that I didn't know to consider. Monetary compensation, that's one thing, but you also want to have a peace of mind, knowing that I did this the right way, it was done with integrity, it was very ethical. Sometimes you don't remember what people say to you, but you remember how they treat you. If there were anyone in a car accident, I would certainly recommend Montlick & Associates.
Welcome back to WALB News 10's Heroes Among Us, brought to you by Montlick & Associates.
Hello. We wanted to say congratulations. You won the Heroes Among Us contest. You had lots of people who obviously think that you're a hero in our community, so we just wanted to let you know in person and say congrats and get your thoughts on it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
Are you glad that you shared your story with everybody?
I am. Well, I was a little nervous and kind of nervous now, but
yeah. Have you been hearing from a lot of loved ones?
Yes, I have. I shared it with everybody, all my family and friends, and I've had high school buddies to come up to me and say, oh my God, I wonder what happened to you at the high school and stuff like that. So,
and you're from Albany, right?
Yep.
So all your friends and family got to see it, and
yep.
Yeah,
I send it everywhere, from Virginia, my sister out there, and some friends in Texas. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, you want a prize package getaway, so we'll have a few options for you. You can choose a weekend trip and get to enjoy yourself. So yeah, congratulations.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
If you know someone who has or is currently serving who makes an impact in their community, you can nominate them for Heroes Among Us. It's easy. Just go to our website, WALB.com, and click on the Heroes Among Us tab right at the top of the page. Fill out the form and you're done. We will continue to share these stories on the last Thursday of every month on WALB.
WALB and Montlick & Associates would like to thank all the men and women that served in our armed forces. You are the heroes among us.